Thanks for being with us on a Thursday. I'm Savannah Sellers. Joe is on assignment. We're going to begin this morning with President Trump on his way back to Washington after wrapping up his Asia tour with a high-stakes face-to-face summit with China's President Xi. The two leaders met in South Korea overnight with the goal of easing trade tensions. President Trump called the meeting amazing. Speaking on Air Force One afterwards, the president said the U.S. agreed to lower tariffs on China in exchange for a crackdown on fentanyl. And Mr. Trump also said both countries reached a deal on Chinese rare earth minerals, while Beijing agreed to resume purchases of U.S. soybeans. President Trump added that he would visit China in April, with President Xi coming to the U.S. at some point after that. Here is a bit more from Mr. Trump after the meeting.
I thought it was an amazing meeting. He's a great leader of a very powerful, very strong country, China. And what can I say? It was an outstanding group of decisions, I think, that was made. A lot of decisions were made, too. There wasn't too much left out there.
NBC News International correspondent Janice Mackey-Frayer joins us from the South Korean capital, Seoul. Janice, good morning. So President Trump seems happy with the outcome of this meeting. Tell us a bit more about how it went and what we're hearing from Beijing on it.
When President Trump was briefing reporters on Air Force One, he said he gave the meeting a 12 on a scale of 1 to 10. So spirits were very high, and this was a meeting with very high stakes. Their first face-to-face in 6 years did not yield the major trade deal between the U.S. and China, but there were agreements on some key issues that will, in the meantime, reduce trade tensions. The meeting lasted about an hour and 40 minutes. From the Chinese side, they're saying that they also thought it was positive. There were some moves on some key issues like fentanyl, American soybeans, and China's export of rare earths, all of it earning a reduction in tariffs for China. And so what we see coming out of this meeting, Savannah, is a pattern that has been established in U.S.-China relations over the past year to escalate and then de-escalate, having established these new bargaining points. It's the sort of transactional diplomacy that China is known for, and it's also the business style that President Trump seems to favor when he's doing foreign policy.
Janice, as we mentioned, one of the biggest results of this meeting was the U.S. lowering tariffs tied to fentanyl. That was a key grievance of Beijing and a big thing for Mr. Trump, having said that it's really where fentanyl, which is this potent, deadly narcotic, is being trafficked from. You actually got this exclusive look inside a fentanyl factory in China. Tell us about what you saw and what this piece of this agreement might mean for that industry.
Savannah, the U.S. government has long accused China and Chinese companies of being the source of fentanyl precursors, those ingredients that are used to make illegal fentanyl, illicit fentanyl, which usually is done in Mexico and then it comes across the southern border. China has long denied this. We were able to visit one of the only legal fentanyl factories in all of China. They're churning out 600 doses per minute on each production line, and there are 5 production lines, and there are extraordinary safety and security procedures that are in place. There's tight monitoring. Every single vial has 4 different codes on it that make it possible to trace each vial back to the company. So the president of the company said it's impossible that any of his company's fentanyl has leaked into the United States. What we saw with this meeting today is President Trump emerged convinced that Xi Jinping is going to do more and work hard, in President Trump's words, to try to stop the flow of these fentanyl precursors into the United States.
Janice, also in a surprise announcement ahead of this summit, President Trump ordered the Pentagon to resume nuclear weapon testing. He said immediately, and his terminology was on an equal basis with other nations. Do we know why he wants to do this, and how significant is this announcement, given it came just before this meeting with President Xi?
Well, it's a shock announcement, not only around the timing of it, right before this meeting with Xi Jinping, but also around the rationale. Basically, ordering the Defense Department to immediately start testing of nuclear weapons to reach parity with other countries like China and Russia. Though China, it's been 30 years since their last known test. What isn't clear is why President Trump is choosing to do this now. He has recently been sharpening his rhetoric around U.S. military capabilities, but there are a lot of people, NBC News included, who are out to the White House right now to get some clarity on whether President Trump meant nuclear weapons or nuclear-capable weapons when he made that announcement. Savannah?
All right, Janice, thank you very much. Well, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says U.S. forces carried strike in the Eastern Pacific on a vessel allegedly carrying drugs to the United States. 4 people were killed. This is now the 14th known time that the Trump administration has launched military strikes on alleged drug-carrying vessels in recent months. Earlier this week, Hegseth said 14 people, he called them narco-terrorists, were killed in strikes on 4 vessels in this same region. He's repeatedly defended these actions, saying the vessels are traveling along a known drug smuggling route. The majority of these strikes have been carried out in the Caribbean off the coast of Venezuela. Well, on Capitol Hill, the bitter stalemate in the Senate continues this morning as the government shutdown enters day 30. There are some signs of potential progress, with lawmakers from both parties telling NBC News that bipartisan talks have picked up again after being stalled for weeks. But yesterday, Democrats tried and failed to pass a standalone bill using a procedural maneuver that would keep low-income food programs funded during the shutdown. It would have required every senator to vote in favor and went down in defeat. Well, in a fiery speech on the Senate floor, Republican Majority Leader John Thune accused Democrats of playing games with people's lives and livelihoods.
SNAP recipients shouldn't go without food. People should be getting paid in this country. And we've tried to do that 13 times. And you all have just figured out, 29 days in, that, oh, there might be some consequences. You want to have a discussion about health care? Absolutely. Let's do it. Open the government. Let's do it.
For more, let's bring in NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Melanie Zanona. Mel, I mean, first of all, to be able to come to you and say there's signs that there might be progress, there might be some talks, that is new. Every day you've been telling us, oh, that's kind of the same as yesterday. We've really seen, though, people may have even seen this, like I've been noticing it on social media, like the pressure of some of these deadlines building, people starting to post about SNAP benefits going away, how many children that will impact. House staffers also, they're going to miss their first paychecks tomorrow. Those SNAP benefits are going to expire Saturday. Military pay has been in doubt. We've been talking about TSA, FAA. What are you hearing about these talks that are happening between the rank and file members? Is there a contingency plan here? What's the movement?
Yeah, good morning, Savannah. There are some signs of life in these spending talks. I spoke to the senators in both parties yesterday, and they confirmed that these bipartisan discussions among rank and file members about potentially reopening the government and addressing these expiring health care subsidies have resumed in recent days. And this comes as the pain of the shutdown has really started to escalate. So perhaps members of both parties are finally starting to get antsy about the lack of progress. That being said, the senators involved in the talks also warned that there is still a lot more progress to be made, while some Republicans are even casting doubt entirely on the seriousness of those conversations because of the fact that Democrats are still insistent on their chief demand about those health care subsidies. Let's hear from some of those Republicans.
Hopefully the fever is starting to break.
What makes you say that?
I think there's some cracks developing right now amongst the Democrats, and I'm glad some common sense may finally prevail.
No, look, there's a lot of discussion going on now, but I don't get any sense. There's normally when you're about to achieve a breakthrough, you're going to have more formal negotiations, probably with 3 to 5 members on either side, and then it grows from there. I don't see any evidence of that now.
And the Democrats that I spoke to did describe these discussions as good discussions, but they said they're not going to go anywhere until the leadership and President Donald Trump get involved. But in a scenario where the two sides have not even been talking, we will take this as a small sign of progress.
Mel, I want to ask you about something that Leader Thune mentioned, which is talking about health care, because I think maybe people at home are sort of confused by some of this sometimes. Like, okay, so is it Republicans, Democrats not negotiating? What's going on here? We know Democrats are pushing for an extension of health insurance tax credits in exchange for their votes to reopen the government. This is because the cost of health care insurance for more than 20 million Americans is expected to skyrocket next year. It's because of a combo of things: expiring subsidies, rising premiums. If Democrats do relent on that and say, OK, as Speaker Thune said there, we will open the government and then we negotiate after, do Republicans have a plan to address the issue of affordable health care? And how do you think, from what you're hearing from people, that issue stacks up with the current issue of things like SNAP benefits running out?
Yeah, well, Republicans, frankly, are all over the map when it comes to health care. There are some Republicans who support those Obamacare extension, an extension of those Obamacare subsidies. There are others who want to see them expire entirely. But the real question is, what do Republicans envision as their replacement for the Affordable Care Act? That is something that is still very much a question. They have not come to a consensus on that issue. It is something that has really bedeviled Republicans for a long, long time, including in Trump's first administration. So even though the government is obviously going to reopen eventually at some point, this health care issue is not going away, because health insurance about to go up for 26% of people on the ACA marketplace. And then people who rely on those subsidies, if those go away, they could see their premiums double, triple, even quadruple in some cases. So this is a huge liability for Republicans. They recognize that, but it's going to take a long, long time for them to figure out a solution. Savannah.
All right. Melanie Zanona, thank you very much. Well, in economic news, big news. The Federal Reserve cut interest rates on Wednesday by 1/4 point. Now, that was expected. But Fed Chair Jerome Powell appeared to kind of rattle markets after he raised doubts about another rate cut at the next meeting that will take place in December. Let's take a listen to what he said.
In the committee's discussions at this meeting, there were strongly differing views about how to proceed in December. A further reduction in the policy rate at the December meeting is not a foregone conclusion. Far from it. Policy is not on a preset course.
Of course, Investopedia's editor-in-chief, our friend Caleb Silver, is back here with us this morning. Caleb, good morning. Okay, so, I mean, sometimes when I'm listening to some of those comments, to me, it's like, okay, I got to ask Caleb, because it's like reading tea leaves. That was pretty clear that there's real differing conclusions was the word he used. So walk us through this. We did get the rate cut that we were expecting, future uncertain.
Yeah, and I think that moment when he said that was when a lot of us spit out our coffee, because he just showed you how split the Federal Reserve is right now. And he alluded to it. There's a dissent within the Federal Reserve right now where half of the members of the voting committee want higher interest rates or want to keep them right where they are, and the other half want them much lower, including Stephen Moran, who was appointed by the president. So the Fed is in this place again where it doesn't really have a lot of information on the labor market, though it knows that it's slowing. It knows that hiring has slowed down. We've seen layoffs from big companies. At the same time, inflation is kind of tempered a little bit. We saw that 3% number last week. So no foregone conclusion, no decision to cut in December, although the last meeting it looked like that might happen. Doesn't look like it might happen this year.
In addition to the interest rate cut, the Fed also announced it would end the reduction of its asset purchases. This is a little wonky. Walk me through this and why it's important.
Yeah, this is what we call quantitative tightening. It will end its quantitative tightening. That's not a weird yoga move. This is when the Fed literally sells off the balance sheet. Remember, in times of economic distress, the Fed buys assets. It buys bonds. It buys mortgage-backed securities. That happened during the pandemic. And then when things ease up a little bit, they sell them. That's quantitative tightening. The Fed thinks that its money supply is in the right place, doesn't want to put more money back into the market right now, thinks inflation is cool. That's a good sign right now. That could kind of keep prices where they are. And we saw with this new tariff reduction announced just earlier this morning, maybe tariffs are not going to be as bad as we thought.
So then with this kind of like mixed bag, like that's sort of good news, but then we're looking ahead, we might not see another rate cut. Like what does this just mean for all the things we keep talking about? Buying a home, your interest rates on your mortgage, your credit cards.
Yeah, mortgage rates were kind of on their way lower as there was this perception that the Fed was going to keep lowering this year. They kind of stopped right where they are. So I would not expect mortgage rates on the 30-year fixed to drop below 6% anytime this year, but also that's the same for car loans. They're going to stay at that high percentage rate and credit card APRs as well. So money's expensive. You're going to still pay higher rates for now. Next year it could be a little bit easier.
And Caleb, one more thing I want to ask you about, a little bit of breaking news here. It's your birthday. Did you know we were going to do that?
No, I did not know we were going to do that. Thank you very much.
Happy birthday, my friend. We appreciate you. I know our viewers appreciate you. You walk us through this I mean, like almost daily, and we love having you here.
Thanks.
Thank
nice
you
to
very
celebrate
much.
it here.
We appreciate hearing that. All right, we're going to get to our other, of course, big and ongoing story from this week, Hurricane Melissa. This morning, we are starting to get a picture of the sheer magnitude of the destruction here after the storm battered the Bahamas overnight. Well, the National Hurricane Center is calling it one of the worst storms to ever hit the Atlantic Basin. Officials say at least 36 people have been killed across the Caribbean. These before and after satellite images, we're showing you them on your screen left and right. It just shows some of the devastating aftermath in Jamaica. The United Nations regional coordinator for the island called the damage there unprecedented. He says an early estimate shows nearly 1 million people were impacted. NBC News correspondent George Solis has the latest from Kingston.
Good morning. Those commercial and relief flights set to arrive here at the airport in Kingston. Now, as for Montego Bay, well, portions of that airport were badly damaged, so it's still unclear when commercial flights may take off there. So it brings a lot of uncertainty for those 25,000 American tourists still stranded essentially in that part of the island. Now, yesterday we got a sense of the devastation in some of the hardest hit areas. We began to head southwest where Melissa made landfall, and the roads there were certainly treacherous. At one point, as we were moving, we actually saw police with chainsaws trying to chop up some of the large tree debris that was along the highway there. Many of them telling me that they were just trying to assess the road on a case-by-case basis. Our next stop was a town called Santa Cruz, where a portion of that roadway was just covered in mud, bringing traffic to a standstill. We talked to some residents there who were telling us the water got up to their waist, if not higher, some of them using buckets to clean up some of the muck and debris, anything that wasn't concrete, roof structures, completely blown away by Melissa's wrath. And then as we try to continue further and further to ground zero, essentially, to Black River, we came to a complete stop. There was too many obstructions, too much mud. Officials saying it's really just one of the areas that's going to be the longest to assess because it has just been so devastated by Melissa. Officials saying that they are now working on those plans to restore power, to restore food and water to some of these most devastated areas. And unfortunately, we are learning more about the death toll. Officials telling us by their count, at least 5 so far this morning, and that possibly includes an infant. Officials still working to assess some of those areas that, again, have not been able to be reached by any vehicle to really just start understanding just how bad the damage was. A lot of officials touring much of the devastated areas by the air. And again, you really get a sense of just that path of destruction as Melissa tore through the island. Some of the flooding here has sort of started to recede and subside. But again, when you talk about the infrastructure and just putting it all together, it is certainly going to take a long time to get a full comprehensive picture of the scope of the damage here. Back to you.
All right, George, thank you. Well, now let's bring in Yvonne Rodriguez-Wewell. She is the executive advisor for the Caribbean at Direct Relief. That's a humanitarian aid organization. Thank you so much for making the time to talk with me. I know it is a busy week for you and your team as you're working there. Just in this early assessment, as we've been talking about, just this really horrific damage. One UN official said Jamaica has been devastated at a level never seen before. What are you hearing about the extent of the damage across all of the impacted islands, not just Jamaica?
Devastation throughout, unfortunately. Jamaica, Cuba, Haiti, infrastructure damages. In Jamaica, at least 4 hospitals suffered significant damages, which is a reason for serious concerns, as damage to healthcare infrastructure can have long-term impact on post-disaster settings. Experience has taught us that that primary cause of death during these events is not necessarily the impact of the hurricane itself, but what comes in the aftermath due to the lack of continuity to medical services. In Puerto Rico, for example, after Hurricane Maria, more than 4,600 people died because pharmacies were closed, health centers were without power, lack of services for people that suffer from chronic conditions, diabetes, hypertension.
Coordinating relief, Yvonne, for one country after a natural disaster, of course, a monumental task. Your team trying to help several different nations, these island nations, they're separated by miles of ocean. I mean, how do you even start to organize a response to this magnitude of a disaster? How do you prioritize?
Yes, one of the biggest challenges right now is logistics, as you're saying, ensuring that essential medical supplies and equipment reach the hardest hit areas as quickly as possible, especially where infrastructure and power remain compromised. Our team is also navigating limited local transport capacity, communication disruptions, and the need to coordinate with multiple partners at the same time to avoid also duplication of aid, right? And make sure aid goes where it needs to go first. So at the moment, Direct Relief has allocated $250,000 to support in emergency operations and logistics. And we have more than $60 million in aid ready to be deployed, ensuring that essential medications, medicines, and supplies reach those that are in need the most.
The storm also knocked out power, right, to hundreds of thousands of people. And then we've got the major roadways flooded or blocked with debris. All of that makes it difficult to reach some of these hardest hit areas. What are some of the biggest challenges that your team is facing trying to get help and supplies to the people who need it?
Yeah, like I said before, the challenges right now are basically the logistics, right? And trying to get these essential medicines and supplies, to the hardest hit areas as quickly as possible. We are in constant communication with the Ministry of Health in Jamaica. Right now, we already shipped 100 medical backpacks filled with first aid items for triage care for emergency responders. And we already sent a shipment with 250 requested medical personal care kits that includes hygiene kits for displaced people. So we're in constant communication with the Ministry of Health in Jamaica. We have been for the past couple of years investing in emergency preparedness projects such as solar power for medical warehouses, generators for health centers, and as we have been told, these generators have been working. So that's a little bit of a good news right there.
For people watching at home, what can they do to help?
So, yeah, Direct Relief is privately funded, so we depend on donations from individuals, private companies to continue our work. People can go to our website, directrelief.org, for more information on that.
All right. Yvonne Rodriguez, we will thank you very much for making time to speak with me this morning and for the work that you're doing there. We appreciate talking to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, let's get the latest on Hurricane Melissa, because it is still causing trouble across the Atlantic this morning, if you can believe that. Angie Lassman is tracking the storm for us still. She's got more. Hey, Angie, good morning.
Hi, Savannah. Good morning to you. We've still got a Category 2 hurricane with Melissa moving northeast now at 21 miles per hour. Really sped up over the past 24 hours, now pulling away from those outer bands across parts of the Bahamas. But we are going to see this kind of remain to be a hurricane for a little while longer as it passes Bermuda late into the overnight hours tonight and into early tomorrow morning, as likely a Category 2. Beyond that, we'll see more weakening. It'll become post-tropical here as we get closer to the weekend. But we will be watching for some rain potentially and that system to pass just to the west of Bermuda later today. Meanwhile, it's a soggy one across the Northeast, the Mid-Atlantic, stretching back across the Ohio Valley. We've got a whole lot of rain that we're watching thanks to this system that's kind of sliding up the coast. Now, we could see some localized flooding anywhere from Boston to Philadelphia today. You want your rain gear. You want to have that rain jacket, the umbrella here through the day today. You can see this is a pause at 8 p.m. Still dealing with those showers across this region. And this is really going to increase our winds as well. You'll notice that even as the system moves out tomorrow, we see cooler conditions kind of settling in across the Northeast and those winds ramping up. That, of course, just in time for Halloween. So as we look ahead to Halloween evening, winds 30, 40, 50 miles per hour in some spots, especially closer to the coast. You'll see those stronger winds. This, of course, not only going to make it feel a little chillier with it feels like temperatures anywhere from the 30s in Syracuse to the upper 30s in Albany. As we look to Scranton, we've got 30s for what it feels like. Not quite as chilly for the feels like temperature closer to the coast, but the wind's not great for, of course, those Halloween decorations and such that are likely going to be up as trick-or-treaters get away. Now, trick-or-treating forecasts elsewhere. Yes, we've got the frightening winds, Savannah, across the Northeast.
I hate the
but
wind, so that actually is frightening.
Well, okay. Well, you've got to go to, I don't know, Death Valley, California. How about that? 94 degrees and clear skies. We've got Transylvania, Louisiana looking pretty good. Low 60s, expecting mostly sunny skies for Bone Gap, Illinois. We've got Ghost Cove, Florida. I know you like these.
I'm so into this.
Degrees. Which one? Do you want to read one? I know you like one.
Did you just change it to Spokane?
Spokane. Yeah, Spokane, Washington. I can take creative
Are the other
liberty
ones
here
real?
Too.
Are the other ones real that are made
You're
up?
gonna have to maybe. What's my favorite one is Albuquerque. Come on, say it.
That was a stretch.
Should we change it permanently? Albuquerque.
Why don't you call him up and let me know next hour?
People of Albuquerque are not happy with me right now.
That's adorable, though. Thank you.
You got it.
Happy Halloween. We'll see you in an
Halloween.
hour. All right, well, newly released dramatic video shows these frantic moments. This is when first responders arrived on the scene at an elementary school in Virginia after a 6-year-old student shot his teacher back in 2023. The video was introduced as evidence in the ongoing civil trial over the teacher's allegations that a school administrator didn't do enough to stop the shooting. NBC News senior national correspondent Stephanie Gosk has the details.
Law enforcement urgently raced into Rich Neck Elementary, one armed with a long gun, after reports of a shooting in early 2023. These videos released publicly today for the first time as part of a civil trial in Virginia, capturing the frantic scene after a 6-year-old fired a single shot at his first-grade teacher, Abigail Werner. The 9mm handgun left on the floor of the schoolroom, just feet from the children's desks. First responders treated Werner's injuries in the school's front office before racing her to the hospital. In the ambulance, Werner asking EMTs to distract her. In testimony, a surgeon described just how close she came to losing her life that day. The bullet, which is still lodged inside her, sliced through her hand and into her chest.
It went past the heart and just barely missed it.
Body cam footage from a sheriff's deputy recorded the tense moments among staff the day of the shooting.
As soon as he shot it, I was walking down the hall and I heard, and I went right in. Abby was in, the teacher was bloody.
The $40 million civil case accuses assistant principal Ebony Parker, sitting at her desk in these images, of ignoring multiple warnings a student had a gun.
When you look at that in totality, it's almost shocking the lack of action there.
The defense says hindsight is 20/20, and Parker was just following protocol, including her decision not to search the student until his mother arrived. The defense is saying that there was collective responsibility for what happened there that day.
All right, Stephanie Gosk, thank you very much.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.